Apakah Anda memiliki perusahaan dan ingin mengembangkannya? Perlu dana lebih untuk ekspansi? Ingin kepercayaan lebih dari kreditur dan bank? Perlu peningkatan image perusahaan? Perlu strategic partners? Menghadapi potensi sengketa dalam keluarga pemilik? Butuh penerapan good corporate governance yang lebih baik? Go Public adalah solusinya. Mengapa Go Public? Dengan Go Public, Anda akan menikmati manfaat seperti akses pendanaan yang luas dari pasar modal, peningkatan image perusahaan, likuiditas dan valuasi saham yang menguntungkan bagi founder, peningkatan profesionalisme perusahaan, pertumbuhan dan kelangsungan usaha, peningkatan loyalitas karyawan, serta insentif pajak.
President Joko Widodo again extended the implementation of restrictions on community activities. Observers says the establishment of the National Food Agency is ineffective. Hello, good evening viewers. Market Headline, this is ready to provide you information from business, economic and capital market sector. And as the pandemic is still ongoing, we will provide you the latest COVID-19 information. Please stay safe by taking some simple precautions such as physical distancing, wearing a mask, avoiding crowds, cleaning your hands and having less mobility. With me, Fajar Wayong, this is Market Headline. Let's open up Market Headline. President Joko Widodo has again extended the implementation of restrictions on community activities or PPKM for another week from August 31 to September 6, 2021. Jokowi said the extension would be accompanied by a number of policy relaxations in a number of sectors, following the trend of improving pandemic parameters, including a decrease in the positivity rate and bed occupancy ratio. Nevertheless, Jokowi asked the public not to be careless during the upcoming PPKM extension. The discipline of health protocols must be maintained, even though the parameters of the pandemic has shown an improvement trend over the past week.
Dalam satu minggu terakhir ini sudah terjadi tren perbaikan situasi COVID-19. Tingkat positivity rate terus menurun dalam 7 hari terakhir. Tingkat keterisian rumah sakit untuk kasus COVID semakin membaik. Rata-rata bor nasional sudah berada di sekitar 27%. Untuk itu, pemerintah memutuskan mulai tanggal 31 Agustus hingga 6 September 2021 sebagai berikut. Untuk wilayah Jawa Bali terdapat penambahan wilayah aglomerasi yang masuk ke level 3, yakni Malang Raya dan Solo Raya, sehingga wilayah yang masuk ke dalam level 3 pada penerapan minggu ini adalah aglomerasi Jabodetabek, Bandung Raya, dan Surabaya Raya, Malang Raya.
Although the restrictions were extended to September 6, 2021 in the Java-Bali region, relaxation were given by the government, one of which was for the industrial sector, which was allowed to operate 100%. The government hopes that this will have a positive impact on the national economy. The Coordinating Minister for Maritime Affairs and Investment, Luhut Binsar Panjaitan, explained that several adjustments were made to the declining trend of COVID-19 cases during the PPKM period. Policy relaxation is given for several sectors, including dine-in restaurants within malls is allowed 50%, with mall operating hours extended until 9 p.m. Luhut also said that the industrial sector could operate 100%, both domestically and export-oriented. Luhut appealed for health protocols to continue, and policy adjustments would be made if an increase in COVID-19 cases was found in the industrial sector.
Ada beberapa penyesuaian aktivitas masyarakat yang bisa dilakukan, antara lain. Pertama, penyesuaian kapasitas dine-in di dalam mal menjadi 50%, dan waktu jam operasional mal diperpanjang menjadi 21.00. Kedua, uji coba 1.000 outlet restoran di luar mal dan yang berada di ruang tertutup untuk bisa beroperasi dengan 25% kapasitas di Surabaya, Jakarta, Bandung, dan Semarang. Seluruh industri atau pabrik, baik yang orientasi domestik, non-esensial, maupun ekspor esensial dapat beroperasi 100%.
Luhut added that the government will continue to encourage vaccination and the use of the Peduli Lindungi application to suppress active confirmation cases in the middle of the Java-Bali PPKM adjustment period. From Jakarta, Rizka Ayu for IDX Channel. Minister for Economic Affairs, Erlangga Hartarto, reported that the realization of the distribution of funds for the national economic recovery only reached 340.84 trillion rupiah. The realization is equivalent to 45.8% of the total budget ceiling. This realization consists of the use of funds for health programs, reaching 84.84 trillion rupiah, or 34% of the ceiling. Then social protection is 102.69 trillion, or 55% of the ceiling. The MSME Assistance Fund was realized 48 trillion rupiah. Furthermore, the realization of priority programs has reached 52.3 trillion rupiah, or 44% of the ceiling, and the business incentive was realized at 56.7 trillion rupiah, or 50.35% of the budget ceiling.
Realisasi PEN ini mencapai 45,8% atau 340,84 triliun, terdiri dari sektor kesehatan 34% atau 80,48 triliun, perlindungan sosial ini 55% atau 102,69 triliun, untuk UMKM realisasi 48 triliun atau 29%, kemudian program prioritas 44% atau 52,3 triliun.
And we're moving on to global update. The final U.S. military flight has left the Afghan capital, officially ending the United States' 20 years war in Afghanistan. India's rising output of COVID-19 vaccines and the inoculation of more than half its adult population are raising hopes the country will resume being an exporter within months. And more stories on today's International Minute. The final U.S. military flight has left the Afghan capital, the Pentagon has announced, officially ending the United States' 20-year war in Afghanistan after a chaotic evacuation effort. General Kenneth McKenzie, commander of U.S. Central Command, said that the U.S. evacuated 79,000 people from Kabul, including 6,000 American citizens, since August 14, a day before the Taliban took control of the city. The European Union recommended a pause on all non-essential travel from the U.S. as COVID-19 cases surge. The daily average for hospital admissions has risen past 100,000 for the first time since last winter. The recent wave, driven by the Delta variant, is more severe in the U.S. South, but cases are rising nationwide. India's rising output of COVID-19 vaccines and the inoculation of more than half its adult population with at least one dose are raising hopes the country will resume being an exporter within months, ramping up from early next year. After donating or selling 66 million doses to nearly 100 countries, India barred exports in mid-April to focus on domestic immunization as infections exploded. Hurricane Ida pummeled U.S. Gulf Coast energy suppliers, knocking out most of the region's offshore wells and nearly half its motor fuel production, and drove prices broadly higher. The storm crashed into the Louisiana coast on Sunday, tearing through U.S. offshore oil and gas fields with 150 miles per hour winds. IDX Channel reports. Market headlines will be right back with Deep Inside segment. Stay tuned.
Presiden Joko Widodo memiliki optimisme yang tinggi terkait dengan proses vaksinasi nasional yang sedang dilakukan saat ini. Bagaimana tanggapan dari pengusaha dengan angka ini?
Tentu membuat kita harus lebih berhati-hati.
Langkah apa yang tepat dilakukan untuk bisa meningkatkan pemahaman masyarakat?
Komunikasi publik adalah kunci. Jadi kita harus bisa menunjukkan kepada masyarakat bahwa vaksinasi itu penting.
Ya halo pemirsa, nama saya Mangivera Tjong. Saat ini saya menjabat sebagai presenter dan juga associate producer. Saat ini saya membawakan program IDX Session Closing, di mana di program tersebut saya menganalisa isu-isu ekonomi yang menarik, baik dari luar negeri maupun juga dari dalam negeri. Tentunya hingga saat ini saya masih terus belajar dan saya sangat menikmati profesi tersebut.
Wilayah kerja minyak dan gas bumi, Rokan, kembali ke pangkuan Ibu Pertiwi. Presiden Joko Widodo kemarin meluncurkan sistem online single submission atau OSS berbasis risiko di Kementerian Investasi. Jadi untuk menjadi pengusaha gitu, tapi kalau perizinannya susah, ya nggak jadi.
Betul, pelaku usaha lokal juga ini kan merasa didukung ya, dan
Betul.
ketika para pelaku usaha ini bisa tumbuh, ini kan juga bisa mendorong perekonomian pada akhirnya, betul ya?
Pasti.
Biar komitmen itu menjadi realisasi investasi.
Welcome back. From Deep Insights coverage today, through Presidential Decree number 66 of 2021, the National Food Agency was officially established. The agency is tasked with carrying out government duties in the food sector, including coordination of the formulation and implementation of policies on food availability, stabilization of supply, and food prices. President Joko Widodo has officially established the National Food Agency through Presidential Regulation number 66 of 2021. The National Food Agency is mandated by Law number 18 of 2012 concerning food. Based on the Presidential Regulation, the National Food Agency is a government agency that is under and responsible to the President. The National Food Agency is tasked with carrying out government duties in the food sector. The duties and functions of this agency, among others, are coordination of the formulation and implementation of policies on food availability, stabilization of supply, and food prices. There are at least 9 foods that are the scope of monitoring. Duties and functions of the National Food Agency, namely rice, corn, soybeans, consumption sugar, onions, poultry eggs, ruminant meat, poultry meat, and chilies. The authority can also be increased according to the President's decree. Meanwhile, the funding of the National Food Agency comes from the state budget and other legal and non-binding sources of funding, in accordance with the provisions of the legislation. Previously, the House of Representatives urged the government to immediately establish a National Food Agency. This is a follow-up to the implementation of the Food Law, which was enacted in 2012. So it should be in 2015 that the National Food Agency should have been established. Finally, 7 years after the food law, President Joko Widodo on July 29, 2021 signed Presidential Decree number 66 of 2021 concerning the National Food Agency, which made the agency officially established. IDX Channel reports. Meanwhile, economic observers from the Institute for Development on Economic and Finance criticized the establishment of the National Food Agency. Not only has the role of ministries and related institutions in the agricultural sector not yet optimal, the authority of the National Food Agency is also seen as limited. The Institute for Development on Economics and Finance, or INDEF, assessed that the establishment of a national food agency is not seen as a solution for the development of the agricultural sector in Indonesia. Moreover, there is a lot of homework for the government to do. INDEF Program Director Esther Sri Astuti mentioned a number of problems in the agricultural sector, ranging from the small growth every year to the high imports of the food sector that have continued until now, such as rice, sugar, and soybeans. No wonder Esther said the establishment of a national food agency is not a solution for the development of the agricultural sector in Indonesia. For this reason, she asked the government to optimize the role of the relevant ministries in the agricultural sector. Moreover, the National Food Agency is seen as ineffective if the existing authority is still held by the relevant ministry.
Badan Pangan Nasional bukan solusi ya untuk pengembangan sektor pertanian di Indonesia. Kenapa? Ya seharusnya kementerian-kementerian teknis yang sudah ada ini dioptimalkan saja fungsinya gitu. Sehingga kalau mereka dioptimalkan, maka saya yakin di bawah koordinasi Kementerian Koordinasi Perekonomian, saya yakin akan bisa mencapai swasembada pangan. Nah, BPN ini apabila tetap dibentuk, saya rasa tidak akan efektif ya, jika sebagian kewenangannya masih ada di Kementerian Teknis gitu.
Esther added that the weaknesses of the agricultural sector in Indonesia are numerous, ranging from low productivity, low access to banking and capital, especially the role of the government is seen as not yet optimal. For this reason, if the authority is still in the relevant ministries, the National Food Agency is seen as not going well. From Jakarta, Ade Firmansyah for IDX Channel. And not only observers, senior economist Faisal Basri even assessed that the National Food Agency that has just been formed by the government does not have the capability that is expected to be able to solve various food problems in Indonesia.
Efforts to improve national food policies doesn't seem to be able to provide optimal results even though the president has established a national food agency. This estimate cannot be separated from the lack of authority of the National Food Agency, which is like the Food Security Agency under the Ministry of Agriculture. University of Indonesia senior economist Faisal Basri expressed this view due to the many limitations of the authority of the National Food Agency. So he also called it a food body without fangs. Faisal regretted the minimal role of the National Food Agency, which was originally designed as a super institution to deal with upstream to downstream issues in the food sector.
Sehingga Badan Pangan Nasional yang ada di Perpres nomor 66 itu menyisakan sedikit sekali kewenangan ya membuat BPN tak bertaring. Jadi kita nggak bisa punya harapan lagi dari BPN ini. Ya. Mirip seperti sekarang kelihatannya mengarah BPN pada kebijakannya saja. Nanti yang melaksanakan bulog, ya sama saja seperti sekarang.
Referring to the authority of the National Food Agency as stated in the Presidential Regulation 66 of 2021, it only gives authority as a steering body, but its implementation remains in various existing ministries. In addition, the authority of the National Food Agency in the Presidential Regulations also overlaps with the authority of other ministries. In addition, the authority of the National Food Agency in the presidential regulations also overlaps with the authority of other ministries. From Jakarta, Raharjo Patmo for IDX Channel.
In the midst of the spotlight and criticism, the People's Coalition for Food Sovereignty has positively welcomed the establishment of the National Food Agency. Despite giving a positive response, this coalition requested that the authority of the National Food Agency to not only cover 9 food commodities.
The People's Coalition for Food Sovereignty welcomes the establishment of National Food Agency, where the presence of this agency is believed to solve a number of problems in the food sector, ranging from the problem of high food imports to a number of food challenges amid the pandemic. Although appreciative, the National Coordinator of the People's Coalition for Food Sovereignty, Said Abdullah, stated that notes were needed in carrying out the duties of the newly formed agencies. One of them is improving food import data. He assessed that with the existence of the National Food Agency, this agency should have great power to determine accountable policies, including the scope of commodities in the food sector. Meanwhile, this coalition requested that the authority of the National Food Agency be expanded to cover all food commodities. Currently, the authority of the National Food Agency only covers 9 commodities, namely rice, corn, soybeans, consumption sugar, onions, poultry eggs, ruminant meat, poultry meat, and onions. From Jakarta, Adi Firmansyah for IDX Channel.
Stay with us because Market Headline will be back after this quick break.
Seiring meluasnya cakrawala investasi di tengah pasar saham yang dinamis. Analisa mendalam diperlukan untuk menemukan saham berorientasi value yang menghasilkan kinerja yang tinggi. IDX Channel akan mengulas isu pasar dan pergerakan saham terkini. Saksikan ulasannya bersama analis terpercaya hanya di IDX Channel.
Ya halo pemirsa, nama saya Mangivera Tjong. Saat ini saya menjabat sebagai presenter dan juga associate producer. Saat ini saya membawakan program IDX Session Closing, di mana di program tersebut saya menganalisa isu-isu ekonomi yang menarik, baik dari luar negeri maupun juga dari dalam negeri. Tentunya hingga saat ini saya masih terus belajar dan saya sangat menikmati profesi tersebut.
Aku akan tunjukkan ke kalian semua, aku nggak perlu membalas, tapi you see me, let's see, you can see me soon, what I'm doing.
Nah, sejauh ini kritikan terpedas yang pernah diterima apa Kak?
Kayak gini, aku pernah gini, narimu jelek, gak bagus, apa sih kamu jadi penari kayak begitu, aku udah pernah yang kayak gitu.
Indonesia dipastikan sudah terlepas dari jurang resesi ekonomi setelah berhasil tumbuh positif.
Pemerintah melihat bahwa Q4 adalah potensi untuk kita membalikkan keadaan kembali. Kita memperkirakan
Welcome back on Market Headline. At the Jakarta Composite Index intraday movement earlier today, JCI was open at the level of 6,130.59. And then approaching the closing time on the first session, the index was on the level of 6,125.41. And then the index was showing strengthening trend by the second session closing time. The index was closed at the level of 6,150.03. In short, JCI went up 0.09%. And next, we're going to see the sectoral movement. Leading the dynamics of today's trading, we got technology as the leader of strengthening trend that went up 1.67%. Basic went up 1.01%. Transportation, as the leader of weakening trend, went down 1.09%, and non-cyclic went down 0.63%. Moving on to top gainers and top losers, here are the key highlights from today's trading session. Buka went up 5.59% to the level of 945 rupiah. Bank Mandiri went up 2.52% to the level of 6,100 rupiah. Aneka Tambang went up 3.46% to the level of 2,390 rupiah, and Behit went up 15.79% to the level of 110 rupiah per share. Meantime, the top losers for today's trading, we got BBCA went down 0.23%. BBRI went down 0.25% to the level of 3,930 rupiah per share. BBYB went down 6.75%, and Arto went down 3.5% to the level of 15,175 rupiah per share. And next, we're going to see the intraday movement of rupiah towards US dollar. Open at the level of 14,343. Rupiah was also showing strengthening trend towards US dollar and was closed at the level of 14,262. In summary, rupiah went up 0.88%. Telkom Indonesia recorded a net profit of 12.45 trillion rupiah in first half 2021. The company's high revenue is reported as the main profit growth contributor.
During the first 6 months of 2021, Telkom Indonesia recorded a net profit of 12.45 trillion rupiah, or an increase compared to the same period in 2020 of 10.99 trillion. Based on the financial report, Telkom's total revenue in the first half of this year increased to 60.48 trillion rupiah from 66.86 trillion in the same period a year earlier. Meanwhile, Telkom's operating profit in first semester reached 23.62 trillion rupiah after deducting the value of expenses and costs for the first 6 months of this year. As is known, Telkom's operating profit in first semester of 2020 was 22.25 trillion rupiah. Meanwhile, on the other hand, Telkom's total liabilities increased to 153.87 trillion from the position as of December 2020, which was 126 trillion rupiah. IDX Channel reports.
Sarana Menara Nusantara will rely on financing from banking to finance company's expansion this year. However, the company does not close the possibility of issuing bond or debt in the future. The company has enough access to issuance of debt, but for banking loans, the portion is more. In pandemic like now, banking loans received this year can help the company's liquidity. Through bank loans, the company can negotiate to change the profile of due date and fixed interest rate facility as in the bond, even though the company is also considering market condition and looking for beneficial financing instruments. So far, the company only used 40% for capital expenditure and 60% for saving. This low capital expenditure is due to increased utilization and many tower collocation. With this pattern, the company is optimistic can get up to 8% revenue growth in 2021. The company also continues to acquire towers and will add new towers to achieve the target. And step aside from market condition as the efforts in achieving herd immunity is still going on. Here it is an updated data about COVID-19 vaccinations in Indonesia. And the news closes our market headlines today. Please enjoy our next program on IDX Channel, your trustworthy economic, business and capital market channel. And as the COVID-19 pandemic is still going on, keep protecting your family by following the health protocols, wearing face masks, keep your distance and stay away from crowds, wash your hands through running water, and also continue to support the vaccination program to accelerate the creation of herd immunity. I'm Fajar Wayong. Have a nice evening and stay safe.
Buat saya, motivasi terbesar adalah cinta. Karena saya percaya apabila kita fokus kepada cinta, maka apapun yang kita lakukan, perbuatan kita, pikiran kita, tenaga kita, akan menjadi berlipat ganda untuk menjadikan cinta tersebut semakin terjaga. Jadi, apabila Anda ingin mendapatkan motivasi, temukan cinta terbesar, lalu pastikan Anda support cinta tersebut sehingga Anda menjadi pribadi yang lebih hebat. Saya Hilbram Dunar untuk IDX Channel.